Whether it's filling your social media feeds or not, the Black Lives Matter movement is still raging, and it still needs your help.
Please consider donating to any Black Lives Matter causes you can, because we still have a long way to go towards a better future for all of us.
Donation links are provided below our description. Please check them out and consider donating. We hope you will. Thank you. And now, this week's episode.
Hey everyone, this episode contains spoilers, so if you don't want to end up like Chad driving that BMW at 14, watch the movies first.
Son of a bitch, Chad.
Twinema. Cinema.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the day after Election Day.
Yes, today is the day after Election Day, but we recorded this 2 weeks in advance, so...
Yeah, we don't know what happens, and more than likely, you won't know either.
Yeah, we're betting at this point in time that they are still counting the votes in most states, if not all states.
So the national nightmare might be over, or it could just be continuing to gain steam. So at this point, we're trying to provide a welcome distraction to your post-electoral woes, and we're going to talk about some, terrorism at the White House.
Yeah, we're not completely leaving the political sphere, but we're going into a little bit more escapist entertainment.
Yeah, this is definitely kind of the fantastical realm of the presidential action flick.
Yeah, I can't believe that these two movies came out at the same time, honestly, because this one was recent. I saw both of these movies in theaters. You know, I think this is the first dueling movie episode that we've done where I actually saw both movies in theaters.
And I saw them both as well, because this week we are covering Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down.
I already have a strong opinion on these, so I'm looking forward to going back and revisiting them because I've heard some positive things about my other film since my original viewings. But we'll see. I will hold out on judgment until after watching them.
I certainly have a bias as well, but it isn't like a strong bias like Volcano was. So I'm looking forward to rewatching these and having just a stupid good time.
Stupid good time seems to be a pretty accurate assessment of what is going to be had. Get your popcorn ready, you get your Red Bull, and you dump that Red Bull into your Coca-Cola, and you get fucking jacked up for these movies.
But don't forget dissolving some Sour Patch Kids in there too.
Oh God, that sounds like an actual suicide.
Yeah, it's liquid diabetes.
Also sounds quite delicious.
I'm sure it is. But yeah, I like these movies. It's like two charmingly brutal leads. And I'm looking forward to watching the carnage again, because again, they're just stupidly fun.
So Max, I feel like it is about time for us to go into one of our recurring segments here.
What can you remember? Yeah, that'll be an interesting one, as I have not seen either of these movies in a while. I saw the second sequel to one of these fairly recently, very beginning of lockdown. And that was a movie.
Well, I think we could definitely say that Olympus Has Fallen got the sequels, because White House Down didn't get any. Olympus Has Fallen, two sequels.
Yeah, they continue following, and there's talk of even more movies and a TV series.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, it must be like a budget thing, because I don't know what their budget actually is, but I feel like, as long as you're making money over your budget, you can keep making your movies.
Like, there's the thing. I think, well, I guess we'll probably discuss this, later in the show like we usually do, but just trying to remember, I'm thinking Olympus Fallen was pretty cheap and White House Down was pretty expensive.
Feel that's probably the case. But we're going to go into this segment now, and Max, which one are you going to do?
Well, as I think I remember Olympus Has Fallen a little bit more, I'm going to make you try to tell me what that movie was about.
I'm going to tell you what Olympus Has Fallen is about?
Correct.
Oh, okay. I was anticipating I was going to do White House Down, so you threw me for a loop. All right. Well,
I'm tricky.
Olympus Has Fallen begins on a highway in a limousine. And we have Gerard Butler as a character whose name I can't recall, and Aaron Eckhart as a president. and they are in the back seat of this car with Aaron Eckhart's wife, the first lady. And guess what? It's winter, baby. And so apparently that means the roads are icy wherever they are. I don't remember where it actually takes place. It's on some road. And this limousine loses control. And all of a sudden, we're in the icy water, and Gerard Butler has to make a choice. And also, if I didn't say it already, Gerard Butler is a secret service agent. God, how can I not?
Special service agent man.
Secret service agent.
3 episodes in a row, Joe.
His purpose is to protect the president. And so when the president and his wife are both thrown into these icy waters and they might die, he has to make a choice, and he chooses to save the president. And guess what? The president never forgives him. Cut to the future, where Gerard Butler, I think, is still a Secret Service agent, but not working directly in protecting the president because the president is still pissed that he let his wife die. Well, guess what? Gerard Butler is the best Secret Service agent that ever Secret Serviced. And so when terrorists try to take over the White House and kidnap the president, you know who's there to save the day? Gerard Butler and his daughter? For some reason? Or am I mixing up the movies now? I can't remember. I feel like there's daughters in both. But wait, I think I know what happens. In Olympus Has Fallen, I think it's the president's daughter. And in White House Down, I think it's Channing Tatum's daughter.
Hey, whoa. Don't get into my movie.
I'm sorry. There's a daughter in both. I just don't.
Do you remember where the terrorists from? Who are the terrorists?
Oh, okay. The terrorists in Olympus Has Fallen are from... I actually don't know. I believe it's an Asian country, but I don't remember which one. I'm going to go with North Korea. That's my guess, because it seems like we might have terrorists coming from North Korea, but I don't actually know. But Morgan Freeman is in the movie, and he's the vice president, if I remember correctly. And Gerard Butler is basically just doing Die Hard in the White House because they're trying to get him, but they just can't because, he's channeling his inner Bruce Willis, but he's just not quite as witty. And somewhere along the lines, things happen, and I think things get solved. I know that there's a giant friggin' plane that lands on the White House lawn, and now I'm lost in the woods. I don't remember the last 20 minutes of the movie.
You're just describing what happens in all movies. There's complications, things get solved.
Yep,
Be as vague as possible so you can't be wrong.
Exactly. But Max, tell us, what happens in White House Down?
Oh, boy.
What
this is always an interesting one. It's basically the same thing. It's Die Hard in the White House. So Die House. No, that didn't work. But you have your charming potato, Mr. Channing Tatum, as also a special Secret Service man. And I think he actually has a daughter in this one, and he's trying not to be a complete disappointment because he really wants to protect the president. I'm trying to think. I think it might be actually domestic terrorism in this one. No outside threat. So, there's a Dermot in there. There's a Dermot. Similar to Air Force One, there's a dirty special agent, and he lets all kinds of bad guys into the White House and they take over the White House. And Jamie Foxx is the president, and Channing Tatum is the only thing that can save any of them, and he has to break into the White House to save everybody, but he's doing quips the whole time because he thinks he's funny.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if he's actually funny. And God, I think Jimmy Simpson, from Westworld and It's Always Sunny, comes in at some point.
Oh man, I love him.
At some point, and he's a computer hacker. And Roland Emmerich directed this, and he always is known for some cinematic carnage, which is always interesting. Man, what happens with this one? At one point, they drive a limo on the White House lawn and do donuts. Man, I'm getting smatterings of different things I'm remembering, but I can't connect all the dots.
Well, there's one thing I remember about White House Down, but it's kind of a difference, so we can talk about it in the second half, if you want. But Jimmy Simpson's in this? That makes me so happy. I forgot. Is he just playing the same character he played in House of Cards?
Come to think of it, yes, I think you're correct.
I hope he's got the same name. They just transferred him from one to the other.
I can't. Yeah, I literally don't remember a whole lot about White House is Down, so I'm kind of excited to watch that one again. Yeah, I feel like Red Bull is appropriate for this one.
Yeah, whenever I think of these kinds of movies, I think of when we were at Film House together back in the college days, and we went to see G.I. Jobra, Rise of Cobra. And we just stopped at a gas station on the way there and forced everyone to buy energy drinks. And it was a great time. My only problem with the way we did that is the fact that we didn't buy enough energy drinks because my steam ran out halfway through the movie. I should have bought 2 and just snuck one in and put it in my soda, as was my plan for this episode.
And that's unfortunate, too, because the movie also ran out of movie about halfway through that movie.
Well, maybe it was meant to be then.
But I was hoping you'd remember the correct title, which was G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
I will never forget that.
And we also did the same thing for 2012, which was equally stupid. And also Roland Emmerich. So we're back in that wheelhouse.
God, 2012 is great.
It is not, but it is.
Oh, you get
fun to
out of
watch.
here. I love that
fun.
movie. I've watched it way too many times.
But it's also just kind of fun to try to remember what year it came out, because it wasn't 2012.
It's like a perfect background movie. Like, that's the way I feel about it, is I could just throw that on in the background and watch John Cusack run around the world trying to save his family.
But we're not talking about 2012 this week. It is 2 White House action-centered movies. We did our best approximation of what we think happens, but hey, we have to go and actually watch the movies. So we will be right back with you in about 4.5 hours. For this week's movies, Olympus Has Fallen is available on Netflix, and White House Down, not streamed anywhere in particular at the moment, but can also be found streaming wherever you can rent movies.
I love coffee. Do you love coffee? I love coffee too. You know what else coffee can do? It can help us keep this podcast going. So if you go to coffee.com/twinemacinema, ko-fi.com/twinemacinema, you can give us coffee, or money coffee, or coffee money. Oh man, we should pay with beans. Anyway, coffee.com/twinemacinema. Help us out. Thanks. Bye.
Showtime!
Sir, there's been an intrusion.
Let's go.
You're just tuning in. We are going to breaking news out of Washington.
The White House, the most protected building on Earth, has fallen.
If you attempt to retake this building, I will execute you.
Your commander-in-chief.
We have contact from inside the White House.
Identify yourself.
This is John Cale.
309.
Banning?
I'm in the White House.
They've taken the building and they're holding hostages,
Including my daughter.
Can we trust him?
He is ex-special forces.
Tours in Afghanistan.
With all due respect, I'm the best hope you've got.
There's gotta be a bigger play.
like what?
There's only one way to find out.
Oh my God.
The United States of America doesn't negotiate with terrorists.
Get your hands off my Jordans!
Who said anything about negotiating?
We gotta go!
I know you're into peace and all that, but you gotta stick that thing out there and go to work.
Damn right. I lost the rocket launcher.
You lost? How do you lose a rocket launcher? Abort! Abort!
We're talking about the safety of the President of the United States.
We're talking about a hell of a lot more than that, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this episode of Twinema Cinema. We have just watched our 2 movies, and by golly, we got some stuff to talk about.
And we have successfully reclaimed the White House, or at least I certainly hope we have by the time this episode has aired, but they did that in the movies too.
Correct. Both movies have the same ending. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it is actually insane how similar these movies are, and at some points, how much they have ripped off from Die Hard. As when this was actually making the rounds in Hollywood before it was made, it was Die Hard in the White House.
And that's pretty much what goes on throughout the entire movie. You can even tell just from some of the character traits specifically. These characters are basically just John McClane.
Yep, every single one of them is John McClane.
Our main leads are basically John McClane. You are correct. With the exception that both of these characters have significant military experience and only one of them is a police officer, and he's a, what do you call that? Like they called it something when you're a DC police officer. Is that all it was?
I think like DC Metro or something. Is that what Channing Tatum was?
He was Capitol Police. That's what it was. He was called,
because I know he was protecting one of the speaker, right?
Yeah, he was protecting Speaker of the House, guy who name I can't recall, but who acts good.
Richard Jenkins.
That's it.
Richard Jenkins.
Isn't this the second movie that he's in? Because isn't he in No Strings Attached? Or wait, no, Friends with Benefits.
He's the dad.
He's Timberlake's dad. Yeah, moving up.
Uh-huh. Good.
That's how you get. That's how you become Speaker of the House. You got to be Justin Timberlake's dad.
Just pulling strings.
Nancy Pelosi's got some explaining to do. Then
he's pulling strings like like in that album of his where he's controlling puppets.
You mean the album called No Strings Attached?
Yes, that one.
Anyhow, let's get away from JT. Although I love him, we got to get away from him and back to our current films being discussed. Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. Max, I got a question for you. What was the order that you watched these movies in?
I watched them in the White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen order.
Gotcha. I did the same thing. For me, that was basically because I remembered White House Down so much less that I wanted to watch that one first and then proceed into Olympus Has Fallen.
That was my thinking as well. Plus, I have absolutely seen the sequels to Olympus Has Fallen, one of which came out last year. And yeah, those are a little fresher.
It came out last year?
Yeah, the third one came out last year and popped up on Netflix not too much longer afterwards.
That's so recent. I didn't think it was that recent. But I think I'm going to have to probably check them out after having revisited Olympus Has Fallen. That was a lot of fun.
It absolutely is. And besides lifting stuff wholesale from Die Hard, there is an extraordinary amount of similarities in these movies. It is insane. This might be our most closely related dueling set.
I, off the top of my head, cannot disagree. These movies are so much the same. It is almost infuriating at times, but then it's fascinating to just see how they differed. So let's kick it off before we go any further, and let's just talk about the similarities between these two movies.
I know off the top, I actually kept a running list of just things similar between these two movies, what both have taken from Die Hard.
So, Max, what is first on the list? We'll get to the Die Hard similarities second, I think, or at least not right away. What's the things that started off similarly from these two movies for you?
Well, right off the bat, the thing that is most similar about these movies is they both have 3 words in the title.
I didn't even think about that one.
It has no relevance to anything, but it's worth noting.
Well, I guess we could also say, just out of that as well, that the titles mean the same thing.
Yeah, they're both the code words for the security of the highest house in the land succumbing to outside threat.
Exactly. The White House Down, Olympus Has Fallen. They mean the same thing. The White House has been lost to some kind of outside or inside organization. There's been some kind of disaster at the White House.
And then we also have, and we'll try to rattle these off a little quickly because there are a lot of them. We have the White House trivia from children.
Oh, I'm going to pull up my list real quick. I was just like blanking out. I'm like, I should pull this up. What a dumb moron I am.
We also have abundance of news exposition telling us what pretty much country the attack is going to come from.
And we've got both of the White Houses taken down within 15 minutes.
Now, we're not saying the White House is easy to breach, but they do it very quickly.
They make it look easy. And one of the reasons why they make it look so easy is because they've got an inside man in the Secret Service.
They come from 2 different spots. We got, retiring head of the Secret Service and a dirty agent in another. But, Secret Service. Oh, man, they gone bad.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so easy. Just like in Air Force One, when you've got a mole in the Secret Service, it's going to be hard to defend against that.
Thankfully, William H. Macy does not arm one of the terrorists this time.
Well, Harrison Ford did as well. Basically, everybody kept arming that guy.
They kept giving him guns.
Back to these movies again. We have
Yes.
in both films, NORAD ends up being seized successfully by the terrorists.
We also have the PIOC, the presidential escape bunker, being used and also compromised.
Used and compromised and discussed beforehand. Both of the kids in both movies, through their White House trivia, ask about and talk about PIOC.
Almost as if it's a relevant plot point.
It's coming up.
We also have two non-agents with something to prove, although one of them is a newbie, one of them seeks redemption, but yeah, they gotta prove it.
They both also have extensive military service. So they know what they're doing, they understand hand-to-hand combat, and they know how to save the president.
They also were not even supposed to be there today.
Yeah, Channing Tatum, what is his name? John Cale, I think?
Yeah, the most white guy name ever.
It it works well enough, I guess.
He's named after a health food.
Spelled slightly differently, though, so got to give him credit for that. But he is actually there for an interview to be a part of the Secret Service, and then also to take his daughter on a tour of the White House.
Where you got Gerard Butler. He's retired Secret Service operative, but he was shamefully retired and working at the Treasury across the street. Just happens to see the whole damn thing and rushes to help.
Exactly. He runs towards the action because he is that kind of a man.
Back to those kids as well. Both become, pawns, and they're hiding in the White House.
Yeah, because of their extensive knowledge of the White House, they are much better at hiding than your average person. And then they do become kind of a linchpin in both of the terrorist plans, really. They are the threat in order to get both of their parents to do something.
We also have both of the presidents, played by Aaron Eckhart and Jamie Foxx, respectively, trying to soothe some intense foreign relations in Olympus Has Fallen. It's between North and South Korea. And we also have peace in the Middle East that Jamie Foxx is trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and both of these happen, on the news with the news exposition, and they happen directly before the terrorists' attacks, so they couldn't possibly be related.
Oh, no. Again, that kind of goes hand in hand with the news exposition. But along with that, as things are kicking off, we have buildings or structures destroyed on the National Mall.
Yeah, in White House Down, it is the Capitol building.
And then the Washington Monument is clipped by an attacking plane, and Olympus Has Fallen and actually knocks off the tip.
And I got to say, of those two, Olympus Has Fallen, you've got the edge. That's a much cooler moment.
It was like just a wanton act of destruction where the congressional bombing was supposed to be a distraction.
Yeah, it was a successful distraction, but you know what? It doesn't matter. One of them was way cooler.
We also have presidential F-bombs, although since White House Down was PG-13, Jamie Foxx's was a little more strategically placed.
And if I remember correctly, much later in the movie.
Mm-hmm. We also have a tech guru on the bad guys' side, because there's got to be a tech guru.
Specifically, a hacker who is incredibly gifted at hacking codes.
Mm-hmm. We also have presidential succession being part of the terrorist plot. The speaker gets the job as both vice presidents have been killed at that point.
Yes, I like what they did in Olympus Has Fallen a little bit better because the speaker is the acting president of the United States during a significant portion of that movie, whereas in White House Down, they assume that the president is dead, and then the vice president is confirmed to be dead, and then the speaker actually gets sworn in as president. So a little bit different, but in both cases, the speaker is president of the United States during the movie.
Takes a little longer in White House Down because they go through the process of confirming the vice president on Air Force One before they ruthlessly shoot him out of the sky with a stolen missile.
Once again, from NORAD, being used against the United States of America.
And along with those bad missiles, we got the baddies needing codes from the president.
And why do they need those codes? Well, to get into our weapons systems, of course. And once they succeed, which is definitely a similarity in both of these movies, spoiler alert, my bad, we create a ticking clock.
Oh, you gotta watch out for that ticking clock. I just keep thinking of Team America. We also have multiple references to the War of 1812, where the White House was burned down, don't you know?
Oh, I had no idea. And guess what? In White House Down, Channing Tatum takes that inspiration and actually burns the White House down himself in order to set off the sprinkler systems and distract the terrorists.
Because if anything's going to happen to the White House, it's going to burn down from the inside.
Ooh, I like that. Both of these movies also have failed aerial counterattacks by helicopters. In both films, they try to enter the White House from above and are unfortunately shot down by unexpected weapons tech.
Mm-hmm, yes, there is unknown or unhinted at missiles that the terrorists possess that they get dealt with pretty quickly.
Ooh, actually, on that note, before we go ahead, another similarity is that in both movies, I can't remember their actual position, but it seems to be the general in charge of the military operation ignores intel from our main characters saying that they have anti-aircraft weapons.
You're right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and then they both go ahead with the attacks anyway, and both of them fail, getting a lot of people killed because they just didn't listen to the man on the inside.
Oh, man. Wait, that's another Die Hard thing. I have to save that for later. We also have, at the conclusion of the film, neither terrorist actually needs the code from the president. It's a delightful ruse.
In Olympus Has Fallen, they were able to crack the code because they only needed to hack the one code instead of all three. So they never needed the president's code. They just needed him to help them get the other people's codes.
And then bad guy James Woods in White House Has Fallen. God damn it. In White House Down, because of course James Wood is the bad guy. He actually just got a nuclear missile code from the Speaker of the House, who's the mole.
That son of a bitch, Richard
Jenkins.
Also, in both of these movies, each of our presidents gets shot, but they do survive.
And then, kind of a fake out with the terrorist plots as well, as they both succeed, seemingly, when all hope is lost. Wouldn't you know it? And, of course, the John McClanes come back to save the day.
Also, God, there's another similarity that we just figured out. In both movies, they do actually declare the President of the United States dead. Like, neither of them dies, but they both are declared dead in both movies. God.
That's a tough one. Oh, God, Congress would just be nuts to have to figure that one out. But I don't even know what the 25th Amendment would have to say about that.
Well, at least in Olympus Has Fallen, they do explain this because he's never sworn in as President of the United States. He's just acting president. So because they never swear him in, that one's solved.
But I was mostly just thinking of White House Down, because they go through the trouble of actually, here's the new vice president is president, and then he's dead, and they swear in Richard Jenkins, and he is the actual president right now. But I guess Jamie Foxx at the very end of the movie just says, oh, nope, this is a coup.
I don't know how that would work, technically. I feel like you'd have to impeach the president of the United States in order for that to happen. And then Congress, I think, is able to select the next president. I don't actually know. We should look into this, but we're not going to right now. We got to get back to the movies.
Yes, I quickly just want to list all of just the things they lifted wholesale from Die Hard.
I think that's completely fair, since both of these movies are basically Die Hard in the White House.
From White House Down, we have Jimmy Simpson, the hacker, is basically just the character of Theo, the hacker from Die Hard, right down to the classical music he plays while working. We also have the hero hiding above the elevator while the terrorists are below. We also have the, main underling of the Hans Gruber character complaining to Hans Gruber character that he killed my best man. We have a certain point as well where the terrorists realize a relative is a relative. So, in Die Hard, when they figure out John McClane's wife is also in the building. There's also that moment in White House Down when they figure out, oh, no, his daughter is his daughter. And of course, the Hans Gruber character being James Woods. And then in Olympus Has Fallen, we got some vent hiding. We have some Hans and John style banter, being very clever and, telling the terrorists to fuck off and such. And also we have what I'm dubbing Bill Claying. So we have Dylan McDermott's bad guy, traitor, Secret Service man, agent person, pretending not to know what's going on. But of course, he gives himself away at a wrong time and is subsequently killed by your John McClane proxy.
Oh man, that's they're so similar.
We also have moments of characters going over broken glass, and the hero makes a call while pondering his own mortality.
Oh my God. Yeah, he totally does.
And with that, we pretty much have all our similarities, although, of course, we're probably going to realize more as we go on. But one of the main differences in these movies is the type of terrorism involved.
In White House Down, we have almost exclusively, and I think exclusively now that I'm saying it out loud, domestic terrorists. Terrorists that were on the FBI's most wanted list as credible threats to the United States, which I think is a fun way to get your gang together. Who is most likely to attack the United States? Let's hire all of them.
Got them all at once, thanks to Richard Jenkins.
And then in Olympus Has Fallen, it is actually a foreign terrorist, specifically a terrorist from North Korea and a terrorist cell from North Korea, although we don't actually know if he's working on behalf of the North Korean government, but I feel like he might be.
I feel like he might have covered his ass, and it might just be a cell within North Korea without any direct involvement from Pyongyang. But
which is exactly what you would do if you were sending terrorists to do something like that.
So it's never actually confirmed, but probably.
And besides that difference, which does set up a lot of the plot line in both movies, the key difference is simply the rating of these movies. One, Olympus Has Fallen, is rated R, and one, White House Down, PG-13. And that difference is noticed immediately in the movies.
So, Joey, I mean, I'm just guessing, what movie has a guy knifed in the head?
How many times? And that's Olympus Has Fallen. And yes, it happens multiple times.
It's kind of Gerard Butler's specialty in this movie. Like, the way John Wick would have headshots, this guy kills people with knives.
Knife to the throat, knife to the temple, knife to the chest. He's stabbing people all over the place. It's like if Edward Scissorhands was also Rambo.
Whereas, you got White House Down being PG-13. At the very end of the movie, Channing Tatum unloads a minigun into James Woods. Not a drop of blood.
There is almost no blood seen in White House Down, save for a few moments, specifically when our president is shot and they are bandaging him up. There is some blood there, but basically it's non-existent. And in Olympus Has Fallen, there's blood when his wife hits her head in the car accident that starts the movie, and that's just a tiny bit, but it already just shows, all right, we're a little bit more graphic. And then we move into a plane flying over Washington, D.C. with chain guns just unloading on civilians and them getting blown to pieces. It is insane. The civilian casualties are in the hundreds in Olympus Has Fallen, and it's all graphic. We have hospital scenes later in the movie where they're treating these people who have had limbs blown off by these guns. It gets out of control.
I know, yeah. It's a very bold strategy, Cotton, breaking into the White House and Olympus Has Fallen. They straight up 9/11 DC. Again.
They are not holding back. They just, did you say again? I guess you're right.
The Pentagon is DC.
You're right. But they definitely just go full bore. There's no sneaking around in Olympus Has Fallen. Also, they don't hold back on the cursing either.
Yeah, and I guess, by comparison, White House Down is relatively, subtle as they just infiltrate the White House pretty quickly and without incident.
Yeah, they do it so successfully in White House Down because specifically the head of the Secret Service is the one who's ushering the president around. So it's very easy for them to make the decision that they make and send him down there because he's the guy you look to. In Olympus Has Fallen, they have to be a little bit more bold to get them to have to enact the protocol that they do.
Yeah, there's a little more planning involved, whereas... it's a damn solid infiltration plan on Olympus Has Fallen, but it requires a lot more bloodshed and, blunt force.
And a lot more people, for sure. They had a small brigade of people coming after him. And in White House Down, they just don't need quite as many because they've got a much better inside man.
It is true. Plus, they have like the tip top of the shopping list of terrorists in America.
Yeah. The best of the worst.
Let's see. One of the other differences off the top of my head I like about Olympus Has Fallen, there is a kid. He does dispense trivia about the White House. However, he is not in the movie as long and is thus less annoying.
I mean, I don't find her as annoying as it seems that you do, but you are correct. He is not nearly as important of a character, nor does he have the same level of screen time. So he doesn't dispense nearly as much trivia. Just like, when Max gets too much time on his hands, he just throws a few too many puns into conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But yes, they remove him rather quickly and efficiently, which honestly is the exact right move. I was anticipating watching Olympus Has Fallen the first time that, no, the kid's going to stay with him. I couldn't get that out of my head. I'm like, nope, the kid's going to stay in the White House and he's going to try and help. And he's going to become a problem later on. He doesn't leave through the vent. He's going to sneak back in and they're going to catch him. And then they're going to try and have a shootout and like hold him hostage and try and get his dad, the president, to do something. And no, instead the kid actually does what the kid is supposed to do. And the kid escapes. It made me very happy that he followed the plan.
I know. And that's kind of crazy with Olympus Has Fallen as well, because he progressively solves the problems in his path. He doesn't really have any like backtracking he has to do. He comes against an obstacle, solves it.
And he just keeps moving forward. And I think that's something that they do really well in Olympus Has Fallen. There's really only one moment where he even gets time to really breathe. And that's when he's just settled and he's like, okay, I've got to do this. I'm going to call my wife. And then that lasts for probably like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes of screen time at most. And then we're back into the action.
I think most of that has to do, however, with the dynamic between our John McClane and the president. Gerard Butler in Olympus Has Fallen is basically on his own for the whole movie, but pretty much halfway through the attack at the White House in White House Down, it becomes a buddy movie. So Jamie Foxx and Channing Tatum kind of team up to take down the terrorists at that point.
True, very true. And they make a pretty good team. I'm not going to lie. I like them together. I would watch a movie with just them doing stuff. And that's pretty much what the second half of this movie is. It gets pretty crazy. There's a moment where they're driving around in the presidential limo on the White House lawn, and Jamie Foxx rolls down the back window and launches a missile. So, I mean, it gets out of control in White House Down. There are some moments of pure ridiculousness, but for some reason, it worked for me.
Although not quite as ridiculous as the movie itself referencing Independence Day when they blew up the White House, directed by the same guy.
Oh, yeah. I loved that moment. It's infuriating how much I liked it, because I know the first time I watched it, I was like, you bastards, why would you do this? And then this time when I watched it, I was like, ha, I would totally do that if I had the chance.
It's like, that is a good hard wink, sir. Well done.
But at the same time, there's also no way that joke isn't made by tour guides in the White House on a regular basis when referencing the White House. It's the building that was blown up in Independence Day.
Well, I mean, that also is just kind of the nature of White House Down as well. Being PG-13, it's a little broader as far as their comedy is concerned. The comedy in Olympus Has Fallen is basically how severe Gerard Butler drives the blade into a person's head.
I mean, that's true. There is a specific punchline in Olympus Has Fallen where the joke is him stabbing a guy in the throat. That's the joke. And that's just not a joke that's going to be made in White House Down.
Yeah, I guess the biggest source of comedy being a tour guide in White House Down, and he ends up like whacking a guy with a priceless clock at the end of the movie, and that's his character involvement.
Oh man, it kind of goes into his character. Kind of reminds me of one of the characters from The Day After Tomorrow, who's protecting the priceless Gutenberg Bible, and so that's what this guy's kind of doing here. Is he's trying to protect all the items in the White House from being destroyed, and it's just backfiring on this guy.
Although this guy is basically Argyle from Die Hard.
Argyle. totally.
The limo driver who whacks the hacker at the end of the movie.
That's exactly what he does. Oh, man. That's another good connection.
A lot of defenders of White House Down, for the most part, kind of attribute the fact this thing is openly ripping off Die Hard in a cheeky kind of manner. So they kind of think it's mostly on purpose. I don't agree with that, but it's still entertaining, you know?
It's so similar in some ways that it does feel almost like it has to be on purpose. But even if it's not, the premise just alone is already there. If you have an inside man in any kind of situation that's dealing with terrorists, which here we are, it's Die Hard. Like, it's the same story in a lot of ways. So it's very hard for it to not tread in the same territory. But like you said, it's how intentional is it and how close is it? How do you separate yourself from the two? And I think White House Down said, you know what, we're going to make this absolutely absurd. And that's how we're going to try and differentiate ourselves.
Although absurd in, a crazy, this probably would never happen way, as opposed to the absolute insanity of Olympus Has Fallen, which is just the body count.
I didn't even try. After the plane flies over and just massacres a bunch of civilians, I was like, all right, well, I don't know how many people died there. There's at least 100, probably hundreds. I don't think it's even worth trying to count anymore. But I do believe at one point we do number check it, and I don't remember exactly, but I think that would put Gerard Butler's personal kill count at like 30 plus in the movie.
Yeah, so he kills more terrorists than John McClane's, and that's not nothing.
It's actually quite impressive.
I love it. I just love, like, the first time you see either of the villains in the movie, it's the fucking villain. It's like just the way Dylan McDermott stares at the president. It's like, oh, he's the bad guy. Or, well, you just see James Woods now. Oh, of course he's the bad guy.
I actually made a note when I was like, I forgot that James Woods is in this movie. But the one thing that throws me off in Olympus Has Fallen specifically is the new head of the Secret Service security detail for the president is a guy who just looks like a villain to me. I can't remember the actor's name, but I believe he's in Dazed and Confused as well. And
yeah, you're talking about Cole Hauser. He was like one of the major dicks in Pitch Black, so I understand that feeling.
Every time I see him, I think he's a bad guy. And in this movie, he's actually a good guy. Not only is he a good guy, he is actually sacrificing his life in order to save the president, and he refuses to back down. He's the man who gets to say the title of the movie. Olympus Has Fallen, and it's powerful. It brings a tear to my eye in that moment because I'm just like, man, to actually think about and hear that, they do such a good job in Olympus Has Fallen to actually bring the weight of the world on this situation. The news coverage, I think, does a better job showing all of the people who are injured outside of the White House and in DC, in the hospital. Just seeing all of these outside reactions in Olympus Has Fallen just really makes it feel much more real. And then also, I noticed in the credits for Olympus Has Fallen, they used actual DC newscasters on the news again, just much like Volcano did, which only added another level to the reality that they're trying to build.
Yeah, specifically, Lawrence O'Donnell played himself in the movie, which is even crazier because he used to be a writer on The West Wing.
Which, in both movies, gets sufficiently destroyed.
Yes, this is true, for one reason or another.
I don't remember, but I feel like Channing Tatum probably had something to do with the West Wing being destroyed in White House Down.
And then, a helicopter crashes into it in Olympus Has Fallen.
Yeah, I think, what is that? They sent in like 7 helicopters and 6 of them go down. Not a very good success rate, guys.
Nope.
And Gerard Butler sure tells them that because you know what? He has got no filter, man. He even told the Speaker of the House to fuck off.
He said that to Morgan Freeman, and that's not nothing.
And then Morgan Freeman, well, this is assuming it's the same Speaker of the House. It probably is. But then he never addresses it. He's fully aware of that guy being the guy, but he just, no, we're just gonna move past it.
Well, that and they just don't listen to John McClane. They never do.
It is a fault of all of these people. They just, they got to do it their own way. But moving on beyond that, Do you think it's time for us to get into a little bit of
history, facts, and box office? I do believe you are absolutely correct. And this is also kind of a crazy one, as they are so similar that even their ratings and such are remarkably the same. But what would you say was the more profitable movie?
Okay, I kind of have an assumption here based on the fact that one of them has 2 sequels. I gotta say that Olympus Has Fallen is most likely the more profitable of the 2. If it's not, then I have no fucking idea how Hollywood works in any way.
Well, you're absolutely correct. Although at first glance, you might not think so, aside from, the 2 sequel thing, because if K9 is any indicator, that never means anything. But yeah, you just at first glance, you'd think that White House Down actually made the most money. It made $73 million domestically, 132 overseas for about 205 total.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And then domestically, Olympus Has Fallen made $98 million. 71 million international for 170 worldwide.
Okay, so they're not too terribly far off from each other. What was that, about like 30, 40 million? It's a lot, but it's not as insane as some of our other movies.
But the reason that Olympus Has Fallen is the absolutely most profitable version is the whopping $150 million budget for White House Down. So it only made about $50 million, whereas you got Olympus Has Fallen made for a much less embarrassing sum of $70 million.
Okay.
So it made $100 million.
So, that one's pretty darn profitable by comparison, for sure. And that's, pretty unexpected just by the simple fact that it is an R-rated movie, and R-rated movies generally are less profitable than PG-13 films.
It's also just kind of crazy considering how bad the green screen in White House Down is.
Oh, you think it's bad? I think it was impressive.
Well, compared to Chasing Liberty, yeah.
This is true.
I think for the most part, there's a lot more wide shots in White House Down, whereas Olympus Has Fallen, there's much fewer of them. It's more set-based, so it just looks better that way.
I can definitely see that. And some of the research that I did with White House Down is they shot almost exclusively on sets. So they had to do a lot of work like that in order to make it so.
But both of them required extensive plate shots of Washington, D.C., as neither of them filmed there.
I didn't know that neither filmed there at all.
I think they got the plate shots they needed, but White House Down filmed in Montreal, and Olympus Has Fallen was in Louisiana entirely.
Impressive. Well done.
So even the beginning of the movie from Camp David in Olympus Has Fallen was entirely green screened.
All right. The thing for me is I actually think the effects in White House Down looked excellent. So it's fascinating to me that you don't think so. So I'm very curious. Maybe I was just having too much fun watching it, but I think it was great.
I think maybe it's just the green screen stuff, like the wide shots where they're clearly not in DC. I think that might be my only beef.
The wide shots in Olympus Has Fallen are also pretty bad for the same reason. Anything that's shot a little bit more close up or a little bit more from someone's perspective looks really good. But as soon as they pull all the way out and we see even the much beloved Washington Monument moment looks terrible in the wide shot. But when it's close up, when you see the plane hit it, that looks great. When you're on the ground and you see it falling down towards the people, that looks great. You cut out to the wide, I'm just like, come on, guys. You could do better than this. I know I can't, but I'm sure somebody else could.
So we got a little bit of a discrepancy between profitability in the movies. However, as far as it comes to being critically accepted, they're almost identical.
Ooh, I guess I kind of thought that, but I'm not sure. So let's go to the numbers. I want to hear them.
Well, for this one, yeah, you got Rotten Tomatoes on White House Down critically at 52%. You got 62% audience-wise, so 10%, that's negligible. It's pretty much the same thing. Metacritic, you got 52 out of 100, 5.9 out of 10 for the users. Olympus Is Down, different order this time. Olympus Has Fallen. You got Rotten Tomatoes. Critically, it's 49%. Audience, it's 66.
Okay, so that's a bit more of a jump.
So almost 20% gap there. For Metacritic, you got 41 out of 100 and 5.8 user.
God, that's so close.
They're pretty much the same on Metacritic.
That's nuts.
With Olympus Has Fallen being a little more popular on audiences for Rotten Tomatoes. So basically, in the eyes of America, they're almost identical. The only thing that was really different is when they were released.
Yeah, when was that? Let's see if I can figure it out real quick. Because I remember going to see Olympus Has Fallen in theaters. I feel like Olympus Has Fallen had, I'm going to go ahead and guess, a February release.
March.
So close.
And then naturally you would have a movie made by Roland Emmerich coming out on the 4th of July weekend. So the end of June is when that came out in 2013.
Okay, so that makes sense. Like, I feel like it's Roland Emmerich, it's patriotic, it seems like that would make sense.
And then the origins of these movies are basically cut and dry, although it was definitely kind of a knee-jerk reaction on Sony's part in particular, because the script for Olympus Has Fallen certainly was sold and written first. And then right after that, Sony bought White House Down for $3 million.
Oh, God.
Like, there's no sum for Olympus Has Fallen, but it was $3 million for the sale of White House Down's script.
Way to go. Way to get paid, whoever got paid.
And then, it was, like I said, cut and dry. Olympus Has Fallen started filming in July of 2012, going until September. And then you got the White House Down filming commencing in August of 2012.
Okay.
So there was about a 5-month gap between the two, but that sounds about right. Things pretty much happened in the order they happened, if that makes sense.
The film that you thought would go to filming first and be released first is released first.
Exactly. Like, sometimes, especially on this podcast, because we're talking about it, it's all switcherooed, but not this one happened as it did.
So with all that history and all them facts, what's the next stage of our podcast, Max?
Well, that would have to be, Joey,
Winner, winner, who's the winner?
So at this point, we've heard all of the facts, the gossip, and the history, and your whatnots and why-fors. So who do you think is the winner of this particular duel?
Oh man, so I remember having such a good experience seeing Olympus Has Fallen in theaters, and I remember having the exact opposite experience with White House Down. And upon rewatching the movies, I think I'm gonna flip. I think White House Down is the more fun, the more enjoyable movie with way less script problems, which makes no sense, but it's the way that it is, man. Olympus Has Fallen has so many script problems that made me want to punch people in the face.
Which is ironic, considering that's way more in line with the character's actions of Olympus Has Fallen, which is my pick for the winner of this particular duel for almost the same reasons as I think there's a lot of script problems and just straight up diehard rip-offery that I wasn't quite good with in White House Is Down. I thought Olympus Has Fallen was way more fun as well. I also kind of had a little moral discrepancy just because of the bloodless nature of White House Down. You fire a million bullets, you expect to see a million impacts, and when you don't see that, you don't get the consequences, and that kind of sends a weird, message. Where I just got all the bloodshed I wanted to see in that particular scenario, and it was just ruthless. Like, it's crazy they did that.
I think both movies are honestly great. they're quite enjoyable movies. I would easily watch either one of them again because I had such a fun time watching them. But the problems that I have with Olympus Has Fallen, well, before I go into that real quick, I just want to say that I fully agree with you on the context of violence in movies. Violence should have consequences, and the fact that they don't do that does bother me in every movie that it appears in. The one that I always reference is specifically Captain America 2 because it...
Well, just Marvel in general, yeah.
Yeah, it's wrong, and I don't like it. But that aside, I'm an adult, and I can distinguish the differences between these things. And White House Down is just, it's a lot more fun for me. I just liked the flow of it. I liked how everything worked together. But I got to just rail on Olympus Has Fallen real quick because they're negotiating with terrorists at every possible turn. If the Speaker of the House, Morgan Freeman, ever actually agreed to pull out the fleet from North Korea and pull troops out of the DMZ. I don't. He becomes president later, right? In one of the other movies.
Yeah,
So,
he's the president of the third one.
So that man who negotiated with terrorists, who gave the terrorists everything they wanted, who caved under pressure, who failed to, he Captain Phasma'd the whole movie. Like, all they had to do was ask him, and he just did it. Like, he should have just blown up the White House. He should have just said, to hell with this, we're going to blow up the entire White House. I don't know if that would solve the problem, but it would have been a better decision than pulling troops out of North Korea. That's an infuriating moment for me. And the fact that the president in the movie keeps giving away the Cerberus codes. I'm like, just the whole reason that the Cerberus codes exist is for you to not be able to get all of them. The fact that you keep ordering them to give the codes, it just, I wanted to throw stuff at Aaron Eckhart. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, just don't. If none of you tell him, then he can't do this. That's all you got to do. Just don't tell him.
I know. I legit laughed. It is just the most melodramatic part of that movie. It's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. It's like, give them your code. They're never gonna get mine.
He says it like 5 times too.
I know.
And then guess what? They didn't need him to say it. So it's infuriating. That happens. Also, fairly early on, which I made a note of, is they break Secret Service security protocol and bring in the Prime Minister of South Korea and his team into the bunker with them, which they shouldn't do. They wouldn't do, they don't do, but they do. And because they do, guess what? The terrorists are in the bunker. Like, there's just a whole bunch of things like that that keep happening throughout the movie that were just driving me insane.
Yeah, they would go to the guest bunker.
Well, but I mean, realistically, although you believe them to be your allies, that South Korea is one of our allies, you, in that moment, you can't be certain that anyone's the ally of the United States. You are literally being attacked and you have no idea who attacked you. There's just so many moments like that I found so unrealistic in Olympus Has Fallen that I literally was cursing in my voice texting for the notes during the movie.
I think that's what endeared it to me, though, because it actually went that crazy. Like, more so than, it's like the wild comedic swings of White House Down versus the ultra-violent swings of Olympus Has Fallen. So you have to take your certain pleasure from one or the other. You can't really do both. Although they are remarkably similar in quality, it is not a huge difference between you and me, so this betrayal stings less, Joey.
Good. I'm glad it stings less, because the thing is, like I said, I really enjoyed both movies. It is just two completely different things. For me, the thing that I enjoyed the most about White House Down, really, when it came down to it, is that the president does the right thing in every situation where he's given the opportunity to make a decision. The president, as played by Jamie Foxx, always makes the right decision in the movie and ends up on top, and America has won, and we've overthrown the corporate entities that are running the weapons into the Middle East. That's the message of White House Down. And then the message of Olympus Has Fallen is, well, at least we didn't fuck everything up.
You're welcome, planet Earth.
And the only reason the United States of America is not nuked at the end of Olympus Has Fallen is because Gerard Butler happened to be there that day. I guess sometimes it really does come down to being in the right place at the right time. And oh my God, I almost killed that dude when he said hashtag. I was just like, so he's reading out the code to turn off NORAD from exploding, and the guy says hashtag, and Gerard Butler's like, what?
Instead of pound?
Yeah, instead of anything. He'd been like, I don't know what that symbol actually is if you're speaking with what is it called, with like military language, when there's, so it's like Alpha, Charlie, all of that. I don't know what it is, but she says that. But he'd been saying that for every single letter in the sequence up till he says hashtag. Why would you change it at that moment? We've got 10 seconds before America dies. And
like, pound is one syllable. Come on.
It was just a moment where it was a pretty good joke, but it was a very stressful joke. America's about to die.
America was about to die. Hans Gruber has a gun to America's head.
That's what it was. That's what it was. The stakes were so much higher in both of these movies than they were in Die Hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone was going to die in Olympus Has Fallen, and it's inferred that everyone will die later in White House Down, because just like the Middle East would be nuked first.
Yeah, it would. I mean, if we did a first strike nuclear offensive against any country, it would change the world in ways that you would never be able to understand, which we did once already. And guess what? Everything has changed since then.
All right, well, I think that wraps up another awesome episode of Twinema Cinema. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you found as many similarities between the two, because this is definitely a record.
It was insane. Watching both of the movies, you could almost pace things out too. It was just like, and this is when we find out this information, and this is when this happens. It was amazing. It was amazing getting to experience these two movies that closely together. We all knew they were similar, but when you really put them out on a map against each other, you're just like, damn.
All right. Well, America and the rest of the world, hopefully you could rest a little easier today. But until then, keep wearing your masks. Be kind to each other.
I'm as optimistic as they come on this one, but I don't want to pull a Stephen Colbert from last election and just shoot myself in the foot. So what I'm saying is, no matter what happened in the election, we have to keep moving forward because we can't look back from this point.
We love you all. Good night.
Goodbye.
It's almost Thanksgiving, and there's a whole new set of topics for you to argue with your family about. But one thing is certain, and that is the second most popular meat at Thanksgiving, ham.
And next episode, we're going to find out what happens when you bring 2 talking piggies to the market.